Welcome to another edition of the Inspired Stories podcast, where leaders share their experiences so we can learn from their successes and be inspired by how they've overcome adversity. My name is Anthony Codispoti, and today's guest is Sonya Locke. She is the Chief Executive Officer of EDS Service Solutions, a human capital management and staffing solutions provider that focuses on helping businesses improve operations and efficiency. Founded in 1996 with headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia, EDS Service Solutions uses proprietary technology and extensive talent acquisition expertise to allow clients to concentrate on growth while managing critical back-end functions effectively. Now, Sonya has received the Entrepreneur of the Year Award 2023 Southeast Award from Ernst & Young, showcasing excellence in innovation and strategic development. Sonya brings a rich background in global strategy, previously serving in leadership roles at Audio On Demand and managing large-scale projects as founder of Workforce Velocity. She earned a master's degree from Florida State University, further enhancing her strong leadership profile. We're going to learn more about her approach to leadership, her take on innovation, and how she overcame challenges to reach new heights. Now, before we get into all that good stuff, today's episode is brought to you by my company, Add Back Benefits Agency, where we offer very specific and unique employee benefits that are both great for your team and fiscally optimized for your bottom line. One recent client was able to add over $900 per employee per year in extra cash flow by implementing one of our innovative programs. Results vary for each company, and some organizations may not be eligible. To find out if your company qualifies, contact us today at addbackbenefits.com. All right, back to our guest today, the CEO of EDS Service Solutions, Sonya Locke. I appreciate you making the time to share your story today.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you for having me. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, likewise. Let's jump right into it. So you've led EDS since 2014, and you've got deep industry experience. Maybe pick one of your roles along the way that you feel really helped to prepare you for the leadership role that you now hold at EDS.
Okay. Yeah. Do you mind if I digress way back to actually my education, which I feel like is a very unique perspective on what helped shape me to be a CEO in today's world. Oddly enough, I went to school to become an art history professor and was getting my PhD to become a professor, well, academia. And art history, not artist, mind you. I don't do the drawing stuff, but really with art history, one of the things that I felt like it really taught me to be a great leader is you're really studying perspectives. You're studying what does something mean. You never had multiple choice questions. It was all about how can I give what the meaning of this is, how it's impacting the community, how it's impacting the culture, what this artist or what these, if we're looking at ancient, what these communities were trying to say and how that impacted our lives. And so I think with that was really just a strong foundation in not looking at the black and white and looking at the whole myriad and looking at different perspectives and how that makes us grow and innovate and overcome obstacles. And so I think a lot of that early came on with all the roles that I've had. When I first started out, it was with during the Olympics, and it was very traditional staffing. Grew very fast. We were in multiple markets, and really that focus was on recruiting the best, finding the very best possible talent. And from different sources. When I was staffing for the Olympics, my first thing was going to the colleges, and I'd sit down in the actual libraries or in the lunchrooms and recruit all these great college students, because what I could offer them was flexibility to where they worked Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but they were smart, they were intelligent, they were eager to work, but something that was not stressful. So it fit perfectly within an industry that had never seen people like that. Most of the especially in the car rental industry and the airports, it was more like day labor that would come and fill in. It wasn't like a strategic recruiting initiative. And with that, what changed was everybody kind of there was a major recession afterwards, and everybody had kind of blown their money. And it wasn't more about just finding the right people. It was about strategically planning your workforce.
Which recession are we referring to now?
Well, multiple ones. There was one in 92, which kind of got me into that kind of space. And then more for Atlanta after the Olympics. A lot of companies, and you see that with every city when they have an Olympics, right? All this money is brought in, everybody's planning all of that, but the companies a lot of times don't end up making what they invested to be prepared for such a world event. So, and so it was really in those late 90s, and you had multiple ones that kind of went through. I think our generation was really plagued by, seems like, lots of little recessions. But it was more about, that's when it was really discovering how to plan a workforce, to optimize it, especially in highly volatile industries that are driven by customers' demands that fluctuate daily, hourly, and everything else. So, that's really what also prepared me more on the analytical side. I was always very, research analytical, and actually very math inclined for some odd reason.
Which is not the mix you would expect from, somebody who had an art history background.
No, I have no clue why.
You've got this unique convergence of interests and talents. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was just more, I think with data, it just kind of goes back to the inquisitive mind. I've always been a continuous learner. I always want to know everything, and I dig into all of those different things. And, data is one of our most key attributes to do that. So I think that both of those kind of experiences, working with Strident and managing a company and seeing it go from not just, I need people, to, oh my gosh, I need to really figure out how to have the people at the right time and not blow my budget, and how to be more optimizing for clients. So I think that both of those really prepared me for understanding our market, how best operational plans don't work without the right people in place, and really valuing those different perspectives. Obviously I've had experience on the technology side and working in development and working in Europe, which has also gained a really great experience. Even working with Audi, I worked directly with the team in Germany, and very different cultures and very different dynamics of how business operates. And I really appreciated that, was learning that there's so many different perspectives, and bringing those together is really, I think, as a leader, it's what empowers me the most, because leading a large team like I do is understanding that you don't have one model, right? You don't have a square peg. You're
not choosing from A, B, and C and D answers. You're having to have a more fluid perspective on things.
Exactly. And I always tell people that my greatest strength right now, and as a CEO, that my purpose and my greatest ability is, I'm a good collector of people. And I can bring these different, unique, diverse perspectives and talents together, and hopefully lead them to be unified, and lead them with one purpose. And I think that that's really, as my gift. I think with CEOs, they say there's three things that you have to be the master of, and that is culture, people, and data, right? Mm-hmm. How do you blend those all together? And those are like your most important aspects leading a company and helping it survive.
I want to hear more about being a good collector of people. What advice can you give other folks who are like, oh, I'm terrible at that? Like, what do you do to be able to identify the right talent, to identify what seats they should be in? And once you've got them, like, how do you hold on to them?
I think that second part you said was the most important. What seats do they belong in? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, I've invented positions for so many people where I've interviewed them, and I'm like, nope, I know they need to be on my team. I just love their inner drive, their inner excellence, I would say. A lot of people like to be challenged, to continuously learn, to continue to grow. and they have different talents, right? Some people are really, they are more process driven. I want to, this is what I want to do in my job. I can sit there. I mean, my programmers, how on earth they can look at a screen. I have bought PHP for dummies and every kind of book possible. And I was just like, okay, no, I don't have the patience for that. But I can learn how to hire the right people that have that and how to inspire them. So a lot of that is finding also the right seat. What is their strength? What is their passion? Not just a skill set, but what are they really good at? Are they good at, my recruiters? They can talk, most of them can talk to anybody, but they also can listen. And do they have a real drive of wanting to make those connections and helping people and helping companies? And they might be great at that respect. And then my operations managers, their drive is maybe completing tasks, right? And having organization and saying, this is how we're going to optimize this. And, finding those different talents and what is the right position for that person. So that's where I say it's a good collector of people. It's all different personalities, all different diversities, and giving them a way where their passion can meet their purpose so that they can excel personally.
So how can you get a sense from somebody if they have that inner drive to learn and to improve, to get better? Because it sounds like that's kind of the first step for you.
I don't know. I don't have like a set.
It's not like ask these three questions and like it gives
Sometimes
you.
it is.
Okay.
And a lot of times that's where I always have done my interviews more where it kind of goes just naturally, kind of fact first, like, okay, what's your basic qualifications type thing, to really then more into the interpersonal, right? And like, what achievement did they achieve personally or in school or at a job that they felt the most proud of, and, I've asked things like, if you could be a car, what car would you be and why? I mean, like a lot of it is like understanding what is their inner purpose and trying to make them feel comfortable to where they can have that vulnerability to kind of give you their motivation. So that's kind of how I like to really talk to somebody about them as a person. And I think that's where you can find, are they one of those people that like to be constantly challenged, that like to be continuously learning, and striving for that excellence, and they're going to put themselves to the point of perfection, and always see themselves as a failure because they like to have that challenge, but putting them into a position where they can grow from that and not overworking some of them, not letting them, like actually one of my managers that has been with me for 13 years, and she has been in every department of the company, and she is brilliant. And she is like my biggest success story because she has now developed her own, she's in charge of all of the talent acquisition to where I feel like she's built a company within a company, her own systems and her own culture and drive with her team, just how she communicates. And one of the things I've always said is I knew with her, I would lose her the day I put her in a position where she wouldn't be able to master the task at hand, put her in something that she would have no passion and she would feel like a failure. It didn't matter what the position was or the money, but if I put her into a point of failure, that was the biggest detriment because she is always going to disrupt and try to do something different and challenge herself. And I need to give her free reign. That's the other thing I knew is she has to be ownership of it, right? She had to see the challenge and figure out, okay, how am I going to do it? Get the guidance, but have ownership to make mistakes and make the choices that she needs to make.
She sounds like a real gem. And
I have so many real gems.
Yeah. And hearing you talk about that, I get what you're saying about you're a good collector of people because you're identifying what it is that she needs to be fulfilled and successful.
Right.
Yeah. And then you're putting her in those positions to do that. Right.
Yeah. Some of them, one of my VPs, she used to, one of her interview questions, which was one of our favorites, was what kind of cookie are you? Is like a company is like a plate of cookies. You have sugar cookies. You might have the, oatmeal raisin. Yeah, the chocolate, it's like, what was that? What kind of cookie are you and why? And as a company, when you're growing forward, you need that full plate of cookies. You need that variety for that diverse perspective and finding a safe environment where they can grow within what their inner goals are, I would say.
Okay, I want to get into EDS now. How and when did the opportunity to take over the reins there come about?
Well, I came and took over the reins around 2014.
Okay.
And when I came in, and this is where we can also build about culture, it was more not just taking over the reins, but really transforming a company. They had a solid reputation, they had business, but really what was kind of lacking at that point due to some turmoil for the last couple of years, internal turmoil, which we'll get to kind of later, it really didn't have that culture, right? That team culture. There was a lot of inner competition. There was, just kind of like that leadership to where it was, okay, who's better than who, right? And it wasn't growing in a forward motion. So I think that really with transforming it was really coming in there and helping building a culture that was one client centric and it was excellence first and understanding what our value was and how we were going to achieve that together, where one department was not above another department, that it's like a spoke in a wheel, how we can all work together to make one, that all of us are better than one of us, right? And prior to that, I was really working on workforce velocity in Ireland, and then launching the Audi on Demand mobility projects in in the U.S., which was really interesting. So I think bringing those different perspectives of, with innovation and also with building a company from scratch, which was what Audi on Demand was. No employees. It was an idea. It was a concept. Like, how do we bring this concept to life? Was really kind of some of what we brought into EDS to take it to where it is now, and can successfully say that it's grown by leaps and bounds since then.
So I'd like, if you can, offer some advice to our listeners on how you changed the company culture. Like, I think company culture is one of those things, it doesn't get enough credit for how important it is. And I think it's challenging, but certainly much easier to establish and to build in a new company. But coming into an existing company that sort of has its way of doing things, and they weren't the way that you wanted them done, like turning that ship, in a different direction, it's a pretty big lift. Like, how did you
Yes.
accomplish that?
I think it was a lot of different things. First of all, I think was transparency. That was a real interesting shift. Previous leadership was very closed in, kind of, like I said, have these little competitions, but nobody really knew what the purpose was. I was an open book. I mean, I let all of my leaders was like, oh, you want to see the P&L? Here it is. Here's every single thing of it. Here's
Okay.
how much I make. I mean, I was more of a team player. I I liked going into each role to understand what the challenges were, and also really talking to everyone and saying, okay, I want to hear your perspectives. What's good? What's bad? What do you think your value is? What do you think our value is? Um, so I think with culture is a lot about communication and gathering everybody's feedback and perspective. A true 360. I think being transparent, and I think empowering people, empowering them to be the owner of their own domain, right? Versus these false competitions. I always told everybody that our biggest competitor is our clients. If we can do it better than them, then we're providing a value, right? And that's what our value is we are really good at hiring and managing these variable hour workforces. That is our specialty. We put everything in our resources into it. I don't rent cars. I don't own a hotel. I'm not good at those things, or I'm not trying to be those. I'm trying to help them succeed by managing their most important asset, their human capital. So I think one of the other things with culture is being purpose driven. What is it that your company does, right? What are you good at? What is your value add? And not chasing profits for profit's sakes. You see a lot of people that they just, will change what their mindset or, hey, I do this or I also do that, because they don't really have this is what I'm good at and this is how I'm going to become the best at that, versus trying to be everything to everybody and just to get a sale or a dollar or a profit. If you're good at what you do, profits will follow. But you have to know what you do well first. So I think that we built that kind of culture first, of the refinement and the transparency and the kind of empowerment of, building that culture of pride. They want to have pride in what they do, and they want to feel like they're listened to, and they want to have value that they're providing. And how do we bring that all together in a for-profit world, right, where it makes sense?
So let's talk about some of the things that you guys do well. You're in the staffing industry, but that's a huge umbrella. You guys are a pretty good sized company. Like, break it down for us in easy terms. Like, what is it? What are the services that you provide?
So we provide more full business process outsourcing and staffing. And what that really means is, with most of our companies, we specialize in the travel industry. Think aviation, car rental, hospitality, automotive. And we provide the full workforce solution. So we many times will take over a function of a location. So think about, for hospitality, we can take over the entire housekeeping division. But what's different is we not only do all the hiring and recruiting, but we actually manage the people. We train the people, training them on their particular brand. We have KPI managers that their job is actually building these optimized schedules for all of these companies throughout the country. So they talk to the managers every day. And that's one reason why Workforce Velocity was developed. What it will do is look at all the patterns and create schedules based on an hourly KPI for every function within that department, to ensure that you have the exact right number of people during that day. So we might have some locations like in Orlando, for instance, our largest airport. We have over 700 employees. They never leave the lot. We work for multiple brands there on the car rental side, but we also have a management team of about 30. And they're actually managing, directing, they're doing risk, they're doing, the full, giving the operational plan of how they're going to move all those cars. Because on the car rental, the easy way to understand is they may rent 3,000 cars, but there's 100 parking spaces in that ready line. Our job is to move everything in behind the scenes to make sure those cars are always there. And that's where it takes a lot of complexity, with everything from dynamic labor schedules to active recruiting to Six Sigma and lean operational processes to understand what's the best process to get from point A to point B, when are those failure points, and our technology to really hone in how to do that correctly. And all of those come together. And that's why we have our different departments and managers, but we really look holistically in partnership with our clients to build their critical back-end functions that are more labor specific, not like IT or things like that, but more the critical functions, like I said, a kitchen or a housekeeping department, or drivers and car washers, or baggage handling, those critical functions that we can put not only data, but our skill set with hiring and training those teams. And that's why we have employees that may have worked for us for 10 to 15 years, because they're our employees. We have our own culture. We have our own management teams.
And they may move within roles at some of your different clients, but they still stay with you.
Yes. And most of the time we don't move them within different roles, and there's opportunity for growth. And, actually my regional managers, 3 of them, started out as drivers. And over 10 years, now they are running multiple states and multiple different locations, and taking that knowledge. So that promotion from within is also a very important part with ours, because we have such a diverse workforce throughout, and offering them opportunity to provide insight and help with growth.
I want to better understand what the software Workforce Velocity does. Maybe let me start with this question. What is meant by dynamic labor staffing?
Kind of what I was alluding to. There's about 10,000 data points that are on the back end that automates everything. So, first of all, with Workforce, and it was built because there was nothing like it in the market, it manages the whole employee life cycle. So, when someone applies, we have them immediately kind of go to our web and they apply. It will trigger, first of all, we call everybody. So, we called 225,000 candidates last year to actually personally screen them and talk to them. But on the back end with Workforce, that's when their whole application process starts with the interview notes puts in, and then it automates the entire background, what their availability is, which is key to our success is, understanding maybe they're only available from 4 to 10 at night on Monday, Thursday, and Friday. Our schedules are based on it, then takes these dynamic nodes of understanding all these KPIs, the hourly patterns. So if you think about an airline, right? What times plane are coming in, how many people are coming off the planes, on the planes. It builds a dynamic labor schedule based on optimized needs to fulfill all the task functions within those hours. So, it with COVID, as you saw, like said, you went from 3,000 to 30. You had a huge change, but the schedules maintained. And with many of our clients, we do transactional based pricing. It means that we can build their labor work model for the year because it's all based on KPI and these dynamic schedules with the same people and with the right labor price to where, say, every time they rent a car, they pay us a certain dollar amount per transaction, but we manage everything from the management to the employee risk to the compliance to everything to do it. So if we are doing good and we've optimized our labor force and they're hitting the productivity, then great, we're on track. But to meet our SLAs, if I have to staff more people or I fail and have too much overtime, then we're kind of on the
You're
hook.
taking
So
on some of that cost responsibility.
Exactly. So it's a true partnership, right? Is both have skin in the game.
I mean, to do that, you've not only got to have a lot of your own data points, you have to understand the data points of your customer as well, right?
And so we take in all of our customers' transactions. That's what creates the patterns. That's what creates the hourly schedules. In terms of what their customer load is, developed on our own Lean Six Sigma. Here's the process. Here's every support position that works behind it. Then it also has timekeeping, which has, mobile and kiosks that are all, sensitive. So that actually goes into our billing and our payroll and optimizes that. And then, of course, a lot of data reporting and the automatic scheduling. It can take what the employees' availabilities are with what the open schedules are to automatically piece them together, and you have full visibility into that employee. You can see every position they've had, everywhere they worked, every hours, if they've showed up 5 minutes late or, any types of notes. So holistically, you're always seeing the workforce in real time and responding to it in real time. I can know right now in LA if everybody showed up or if somebody called out or if somebody's absent, we know instantly so we can fulfill that. And then with the optimization on the back end, like with our payroll, because it's all, real time and through tablets or mobiles and everything on the ground, I have 2 people in payroll that cut checks for 7,000 variable hour employees every week in a 2.5-day turnaround. Managing every single state, every airport in every state have different compliance standards in terms of...
So the payroll platform is also internal to your software?
Yes. Well, not the platform. It goes into our accounting system,
Okay.
But we actually calculate, like there's different PTO laws in every state. And with us working in the airports in like California, every airport has different laws and different overtime regulations, blended overtime. So somebody could work 5 positions in the same day, right? But then their overtime is based on their blended
Total
rate
hours,
for
yeah.
that week. So we had to create a lot of different complex systems to manage all of that.
And you already made the point. You guys built this because nothing like this existed at the time. It sounds incredibly complex. Is it only used? You're like, oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
we're just scratching the surface, buddy. And so, is
Mm-hmm.
EDS the only company that is using it, or do you also license it to others?
Right now, we've used it internally. We want to go public with it. Like I said, we just did a UI UX. We have been audited and submitted for awards because of the revolutionary part of the technology. But EDS has grown kind of by leaps and bounds. So that's kind of a whole different animal as the tech animal. So that's a push to a later date. And it's our competitive advantage. I mean, there's no one that has a market like this.
So
And
even in the time since you've developed it, have you seen anything else or heard of something else that's doing something remotely close to it?
a lot of them will handle like parts of it,
Okay.
but not all in one system, which is also so key for that transparency and that communication. Is there's very few that you can see the whole dynamics of your workforce. And we also have performance tracking, like especially with our drivers. We have a large automotive contract where we do all of the service delivery in 42 states, picking them up at customers. And we can see if that person's sped, we can see where they're at, what time, and track it so that we can offer the best customer service as well as optimize making sure that they do have the right labor for what their needs are and their timing. So it's constantly evolving, and we're constantly pushing it to new limits.
I wonder if there's maybe a specific case study that you can talk about, a specific client example where sort of this confluence of your skills that EDS and workforce velocity came together to solve a particularly, challenging employment situation for someone.
Yes, and many different ones. Like I said, it's always kind of hand in hand with how we approach a client or a location. I would say right now, Orlando is one of them, is a very interesting dynamic market. I'm not sure if you've ever been to Orlando's airport, but it's huge. And there's 3 separate terminals, and it's the largest car rental operations in the world. We will rent, I think combined with all of our different clients, sometimes I want to say it's about 20,000 a week, and we have over 600 employees. And we've been deploying actually a system on the airport, which was also a challenge, where we actually are tracking every single move that is less than a minute from every employee, and then in those garages to one help identify defective moves, also to have that visibility of where
A move
the
being like, I'm
is.
moving the car from here to there, not the person themselves moving around.
The person's moving themselves around, and then they use the technology to actually track that move into that car so they can see where it's going at all times to give better visibility to have the cars where they need to be for the clients.
And what's a defective move in this example then?
A defective move, well, there's a couple of different ones. Say you have a car or multiple cars, you don't have enough cars in Terminal A. They need to be in Terminal B. Or you have a car that has maintenance that didn't get checked in as maintenance, so then it's there for rent, but you can't rent it, right? So then now you have to go pick it up, move it all over again. There's a lot of different ways you can have defective moves where you're having to move a car 2 or 3 times for no reason, right? And that, of course, fails in your optimization and everything else. But the biggest thing is what we were able to do with that is when we took over for one of our particular clients there, we literally had a week's notice to hire, train, and deploy 400 new employees.
That's a pretty unreasonable expectation.
Oh, yes. But we were able to, because like I said, my recruiting team is like a powerhouse. They last year alone, like I said, they called 225,000 candidates. So they are mobilized, getting all the different talent in there, recruiting it, fast hiring. If someone's background is clean, we can sometimes get someone hired within a 24-hour process after they've been interviewed in person, background checked, fully compliant, all on because all of their
And
paperwork's
that still
online.
leaves enough time
Everything's
for them
done.
to get trained for this new position.
Exactly. Because we could be bringing those in there. Then we have our operations team that is training them on the operations, setting up orientations, going out there with driving with them, making sure they're safe. So it's like so many different compartments, and it's all in one system. So we're able to see everything visibly, right? And what those schedules are and the needs. And then my KPI managers are managing all those moves and all those different predictions and creating the schedules that's been pushed out, that's automatically drag and drop. And then, of course, like I said, all the way down to payroll to where that next week they're getting paid.
It's pretty impressive.
But yeah, so technology is a great enabler. It doesn't replace the personal aspect, but it enables us to be much faster and better and more streamlined and better communication and transparency between multiple different divisions and departments.
Give us an idea of the size of the operation, whether in terms of employees or locations or something. Just we can kind of wrap our arms around it.
I think we're about 151 locations across 35, maybe more states. We open places sometimes very quickly. And also with our technology during COVID, we were able to do remote recruiting for our clients. I forgot about that. And very odd places, like in the middle of nowhere to where we could actually recruit, do the Zoom interviews, talk to the person, get everything done, put them in a client, and still manage them ourselves. But that's challenging. So I think we're about 148 maybe locations right now, and around 7,000 employees.
And are these all corporate owned, or is it a franchise system?
No, they're all corporate owned, all W-2, all completely, compliant across every single state. So yes.
What do you think has allowed for such significant growth? What's sort of your secret sauce and being able to expand as much as you have?
Well, you want to hear one thing that's really interesting, and everybody really laughs at this, is the fact that about a year ago, before we relaunched our website, if you typed in EDS Service Solutions, you would not find our website because we had zero SEO. So we have never done outside sales and marketing. We have very core clients.
You're going to have to repeat that.
We had never done outside sales and marketing. It has been very partnership driven. We've had select clients where we have gone on nationwide to open and facilitate locations for them out of this trust and partnership. And that's kind of how we built our network and our structure and our growth. So very purpose driven, and having strategic partners like that requires you to have a good value on what you do, right? And to be excellent at what you do. That's why we have high service levels and good operations managers that are constantly communicating and really embedding themselves in their client success. So I think a lot of our success kind of comes from our core values of integrity and trust, excellence in recruiting, meaning also to our managers and who we hire, and how we retain them and reward them, and build them for success, and trust and integrity within everything that we do, and innovation, constantly changing, constantly pushing what we need to do next. So I think with growth is a lot of purpose, but synergizing together and with our strategic partners like our clients, and treating them as not a transaction, but as a true partnership to help them succeed, has really enabled our growth.
So when you say strategic partner, you're referring to larger companies that have needs and locations in multiple states, multiple cities. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
Right. So like we operate in like all of the top 30 airports, but across multiple different brands. So,
but that had to take some kind of sales, marketing, business development effort, or is that what you do?
Oh, well, kind of. I mean, like we have our quarterly meetings and we discuss with them, but also our reputation is what has grown us. into all the different markets. So when they have an issue at a location, they know they can call us. Like, for instance, the Orlando situation. That's why we got a 1 week notice. Is they were in a major bind. Their previous vendor failed, and was not very scrupulous with them, and so they called us, and we made it happen. So
Sonia,
I
I
think
feel
that's
like
where.
there is a master class in the works here. There's something to your process that you probably want to keep to yourself, but I think a lot of folks would benefit from, because to not have a sales and marketing team and to get to the
But
level
we're
of
getting one now as we're
okay.
branching out more. So that's been kind of our challenges, is like, it is relatively new for us. We've been very successful with our model, and that's good, but there's a lot of other opportunities that really fit within our wheelhouse. And we know that. And that's where it's really been more.
So now this is
Okay,
where the
so
innovation comes in. You guys need to improve.
exactly.
You need to be nimble and willing to change.
Right.
Okay. I'd like to shift gears, Sonia, and I'd like to ask you about a serious challenge that you've overcome in your life. What was it? How did you get through it? What were some lessons that you learned?
I think there were several, several challenges and always several lessons. When I discussed about taking the reins of EDS, my partner, who had been since college days, was my ex-husband. Went through a very tumultuous divorce, took 2.5 years, really kind of tore the company apart, just a lot of extent. I was kind of written off. I mean, literally had my name stricken as I did not exist, and had to fight for everything back. And so it came down to 2 days before going to court and figuring out, I could either sign a 10-year non-compete and go drink pina coladas on the beach, or I could take the risk and pay an absorbent amount of money per month that was non-bankruptable, non-tax free, to take over everything. And took the choice, came in. We were negative EBITDA by a lot. As I said, no company culture, kind of us versus them, very distrustful type system. And basically kind of felt like building the company back from scratch. And that's where I kind of go with that trust and transparency being kind of a cornerstone, and building that culture. To me, that was the most important, is what do we stand for? How are we going to get there? And had a simple goal of saying, okay, 5 years, 50 million, that's what we're going to get. We did it in 2.5. But a lot of it was our team really, we kind of broke down those barriers, like got rid of that inner competition. And I listened to my instincts, I would say. One of the things that I kind of talk about it on some of these other journeys is I've always been a hard worker, and I've always been very empathetic. And, but I was not seen as that kind of pound my chest, like, hey, we're going to get this done, and, heck with everybody, or that, do anything to get by or to succeed type thing. And, really almost embracing that and saying, no, I can do this. It's scary, but some of my skills of being trusting to people, or being overly empathetic, and really kind of weighing out all the options and not making rash, move this way, move that way, and following stereotype, is really kind of how we built the company and built it to where it was more authentic, and kind of celebrating that a little bit more, and realizing that every leader is different. And how do you find what your superpower is to help lead, and bringing that forward? So I would say that was a big challenge, that we learned a lot from. And like I said, I think it was learning a lot from everybody, learned from each other. Recruiting was just as important as operations, or our sales, as we would call it, like our main account managers and stuff like that, equally important. Same as our support. Without the people in the back end doing, risk or accounting or payroll, nobody gets paid. It's not actually, I mean, they're all equal pillars and they all have to work together and be valued as such and have an equal seat at the table to learn to grow a company. So I think that was a lot of the lessons that I learned on that side.
What did you see in the company at that time that made you want to take this giant risk? All right. You could be
It was a
sipping
giant
pina
risk, and I could,
coladas. You can pay a whole lot of money and take over what sounds like a sinking ship. I mean,
oh
you were
yeah, there were
losing
some
money.
many crying moments where I come home and go, oh my God, what did I do? And I was raising two kids and had no salary at the time, so it was a challenging time. And I will tell you, and I know this sounds very cliche, but the one thing I saw was the people, and it was the same people that are with me today, and it was the power of what we could do. I knew what our greatness was. I knew the hunger in the different people of being excellent and fine tuning them. It was also my technology that was built from, brainchilds from the beginning, knowing what that power was and realizing that that was an investment and we can do that and do this. And, we had to go build relationships with our clients again. We didn't have a lot of that client trust because it was very disjointed, and really going in and partnering with our clients and stating, what we are going to do to be of value to them and how to be a good partner and listening to them and, aligning with them. So, it was a big risk, but I think that's kind of what most entrepreneurs do is they have that power to know, hey, I've got something good here. I have got good people. I've got good intentions. We have a good value with all of our different skill sets, and we can succeed if we're all working on the same team with the same beliefs.
How long before you felt like you had turned things around?
I would say it was about less than a year in
That's
because we got a
impressive.
huge RFP with a client in 46 cities. And we had to take some real big gambles knowing the price was really low because it was a very competitive with like 10 different ones in. And it was kind of that foot in the ground to where it was like, okay, we can either be extremely competitive and get the markets that we want, knowing that we might not make as much profit as because these are transactional based. Some of them could be lost leaders, but we had to provide the service, right? We couldn't just go and say, no, we're going to make profit only. We had to take all of these locations, take that risk, and we succeeded. And that really helped us propel our growth because we opened like I think it was 20 locations. I mean, I think most of my staff wanted to pull their hair out and they were really angry at me at the time because I was like, no, we can do it. But I do have a couple of those disruptors on my team as well that all they have to say is like, let's go. And, they say, oh, yeah, we can do it all at the same day. Sure, we can do it.
So
So,
I want to hear about how you got through sort of the personal and the emotional component of this. Uh, Long divorce, you've got kids, not taking a salary. You've jumped into a company that is, jumped in to take over the reins at a company that is losing money, and you're committed to paying your partner, your ex-husband, regardless of what happens, going forward. Like,
right.
where did you get emotional and mental support through all of this?
To surrounding myself with the right people, I would say. I would say one, like attracts like. I'd say my HR director, who's also kind of my friend. She was with me through both sides. She was on the Audi side. I tricked her into coming to the EDS side. But she, like I said, somebody that was there that supported you, that also listened and talked. That was important. Surrounding yourself with people that have the same mindset and that support system. It does take a village a lot of times. And I think that's one of them. And then I think also too, it was coming to a realization and it comes to my favorite quote, which I know that was one of yours later, is that I never lose. I either win or learn. There's something I
Mm.
know I'm going to learn from that experience. And I also know I survived. I survived, and I always am going to survive. So it might have some difficult time periods, but I know that I will survive. And it's really about just being happy with the journey and figuring out what challenges can I overcome, what problems can we overcome, and how do we lead it there, and you know, trying to ride other people along with you. Because if you have a team of you working to that same thing, that does help. So I would say, like I said, personally, I grew a lot. And a lot of my people that work for me are also my friends. I travel with them. I do things with them because we did go through the trenches together, I would say. So I think there's a lot of lessons on that. And like I said, just looking at life, that there is a journey. And, what is it? You can either cry in the rain or wait, cry in the storm or dance in the rain is what you choose to do with it. Mm. So I think just having that outlook, and yesterday was one day and tomorrow is another.
I like that. So, yeah, there's something to be said. You and many of your team members went through kind of a real life hazing together.
Oh yes,
and there's something about going through those hardships and coming out together that can just bring you together in a stronger way.
And I will say, COVID was the other huge challenge. We knew it was going to be bad. I had lived through 9/11 working in the travel industry, so I knew about some, but COVID was a whole different ballgame because at that point we had like about 4,000 employees coast to coast that are our W-2 employees. And we had a 95% drop overnight.
Wow.
A 95% drop. And like I said, we're still contracted with all these places. We are running these departments. It's not like we could just say, okay, we're going to take a vacation for a while and come back. We were essential workers. And that was a very trying time for all of our leadership team. I think we worked longer and harder for nothing than we ever had. I mean, we were working at least 80-hour weeks. We were having phone calls every morning and afternoon discussing every city, every employee. Because one, we knew we had to save our management team. We had to support our clients. We were having to kind of create safety programs. Like there was nothing for it. I mean, they didn't have sanitizer. I mean, like you couldn't go to the airport. I mean, we were getting Zep, and pallet jacks delivered to my HR director's house, to try to protect our employees. I mean, we had a lot of different focus. And I think that was another great thing for our team, and where we were so strong is, it was being resourceful, and it was being innovative and understanding what our focuses were at that time, and, counting down my burn rate, right? Like, okay, how long are we going to survive with a 95% revenue drop? And an amazing thing happened from that was we ended up growing during that. Like, yes, because with one of our clients, actually, we had several clients went bankrupt, but with one of our clients, because of our partnership with them, and because we did maintain our service, and we were, like I said, we were really there, we ended up gaining additional locations because we became their essential supplier.
So coming
right?
out of COVID, as things started to open back up, that's when you guys saw the growth.
Yeah. So between 20 and 22, I think we experienced 1,189% growth, which was also very much kind of the whiplash effect.
Right. Like this, and then back up.
Yeah.
Wow. Impressive.
But I think that's where you gain from different perspectives, and everybody learning to be innovative and coming up with some ideas and working together as a team and communicating and being transparent.
I want to talk about something else impressive. Your 2023 EY Entrepreneur of the Year Southeast Award. How did that come about?
That was also, I still don't know exactly because that was the time when you couldn't find my website. And when I worked for Audi, it was so hush hush when we were in the pilot phase that my LinkedIn actually said anonymous. So,
wow.
I mean, I have my name, but it says company was anonymous. I mean, we've always been behind the scenes and very comfortable with that. So, but I got nominated and then got brought into the program, went through all the interview things. And I will tell you, it is the most rewarding and most humbling program I've ever been a part of. because it's not about numbers necessarily. It's about, what's your entrepreneurial spirit? Have you overcome adversity? How have you done that? And how have you improved? What is your purpose? How do you lead with purpose? What impact do you make? What impact do you make on your community, on your company, on your employees? What impact do you really make? And innovation. And actually really interesting is this year I'm a judge with the program. And I was up until about 3 o'clock last night. I'm probably not the most efficient judge because I have read everything and I'm just like so inspired by these companies. And it's like every one of them I read, I'm like, oh my God, I love that, and, just really digging into it. But no, it's a great program because it really rewards more than just, how'd you do, what's your growth and stuff like that. But really, what is it what is the long standing value that you can provide? And that's a hard thing to do. How can you lead a team, right? And make and have true purpose that you can articulate and motivate others around you to believe and to follow, right?
What's a book or podcast, maybe a course that you've taken that was particularly helpful for you that you'd recommend to others, Sonya?
Oh gosh, there's so many, and I now struggle to read. But actually, at my last leadership conference, I bought 20 different books and laid them all out on the table and said, "Everybody, here is, grab them." It was everything from to good to great, which was a great book that I still love teaching based on because it talks a lot about the right seat on the bus and valuing that to everything I learned in kindergarten. There was a lot of new ones and old ones, a lot about, so I'm not sure if I could say one. I am always thirsty for more knowledge and stuff. And AI has been a complete game changer in that respect. For sure, with their deep research, although their deep research is writing me like encyclopedias as I get like.
So how are you using it? How is it helpful to you?
A lot of it is as a thought leader. And actually, that was one thing I did have, and I would say it was a game changer at the EY Summit, which is an inspiring summit to go to. Like the leaders that come in, the thought panels, the networking, it's always inspires me, and I learn so much from them. But the president of Coursera had a course on generative AI for the CEO. And I believe they have a Coursera course online as well with it. And it talks about using generative AI as a thought leader to bounce ideas back on, you really have to know how to prompt. But one of the questions that he had us ask, or he challenged us with, and it was really scary, is just go to ChatGPT, if that's what you use, and say, who am I? Nothing more. And see if it actually answers somewhat correctly about you as a person, not just your online profile, which it was scary. It had it all down to my work-life balance needs and my love for travel.
What had you fed it up to that point?
Oh, a lot.
Okay.
I talk to it a lot.
Okay. There's a lot of dialogue, a lot of asking questions. Yes. And yep. Okay. So
and then asked it, how can I be more successful? And it gave me a 15-point thing in terms of both business and personal on how I could personally grow and be more successful. That was really kind of, I would say, something inspiring as far as that's concerned. And that's where I do use it more. And it takes me, I'm not quick with AI. I don't like say, hey, write this for me. I'll go back and forth. I apologize to it all the time. Well, I'll say, no, I'm sorry. I did not mean that. I'd like that. But
I think it's good to always practice your manners. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But, no, there's just so much, and on podcast, I've learned a lot from a lot of different podcasts, just listening to different inspirations and different nuggets, I think is just very powerful. And, so I don't know if I could say one. I'm sorry.
I think it was a great answer. And I think you just gave, certainly myself, I'm sure a lot of our listeners too, an idea of the next thing that they're going to type into Chat GPT. And I think that could be incredibly insightful. I've had so many people
do that and they freak out. Especially if you use it a lot, you're like, Whoa.
I had a couple of friends a while back who were like, "Oh, type this prompt in." It was basically like asking the large language model to construct a picture of how it views myself and what I do, and
Oh,
it was a little creepy slash eerie. Um, and it did a pretty good job, based on the
cool.
dialogues that we've had. And so now I'm really curious to feed in your questions there. Who am I, and how can I be more successful? I think that would be
Yeah.
enlightening.
I bet you'll get some really interesting response and it will be a little creepy.
Yes, like staring into my soul, kind of a thing. Sonya, I just have one more question for you, but before I ask it, I want to do two things. First of all, I'm going to invite all our listeners to hit the follow button on their favorite podcast app so you can continue to get more great interviews like we've had today with Sonya Locke, the CEO of EDS Service Solutions. I also want to let people know either the best way to get in touch with you directly or to follow your story or that of EDS. What would that be?
Well, I have a couple of different things. First of all, I actually am starting a passion project of mine and I'm launching my own podcast. First episode airs Monday,
Oh, terrific. What's the name?
called Spark Sessions with Sonya Locke. It's a series of fireside chats with different women leaders or, inspirational motivators, talking about a lot of different, like my first episode is based on generational differences. And I have three women from Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z talking about the different motivations, the different aspects of purpose within each one of them and how working with a generational workforce. Because today there's 6 generations in the workforce, which has never happened in history, which is fascinating to me. I mean, it's just so a lot of different topics like that impact women. It's not like a business type podcast exactly, but it really is. I look at different inspirational leaders and we have a fireside chat and kind of discuss, topics of relevance and hopefully passing on inspiration to the next generation. Also, you can go to edsservicesolutions.com or my LinkedIn or our company's LinkedIn for edsservicesolutions.com. We are much better with that. And actually, I've got a lot of thought articles. Like that's one of the things that we've really been honing in on is like talking about topics and research and, things that are important to the industries that we serve, to our community at whole, or to the workforce, and really inspiring on that.
So the podcast Spark Sessions, is it going to have its own website? Can people find it on Spot? Like, how do people access it when it comes out? Because by the time this podcast goes live, you will have already
Yes,
published
it
your
will be
first
on.
episode.
It does have its own website, which I believe is called sparksessions.com, or you can follow it from my website, sonyalocke.com. And it will also be on Apple and Spotify.
Great. And we'll make sure that
Just Spark Sessions with Sonya Locke. Like I said, we launch it next week.
Okay.
But
Okay. We'll make sure we find the links and we include them in the show
and
notes.
obviously on LinkedIn, edsservicesolutions.com. We kind of keep up to date with all of that.
Gotcha. Okay. So last question, as you look to the future, Sonya, what are the changes in your business that you're most excited about here in the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, I think, I've had a lot of conversation. I get called with robocalls and AI for recruiting, which I can give you, that's too long a conversation for me to tell you why that does not work. There is a place for AI, but it's not in the people business. So I think, you're seeing a big change in the workforce. It's much more of a conversation. It's not, it's not the traditional path, and you're seeing a lot of people trying to grasp that. Like, how do I get people to work? We've had the Great Resignation, we've had, the changes since COVID and everything like that. People do want to work, but they want purpose. And there's a mix between how do employers really match with employees and understanding that it is a two-way streak right now. It's not a one side fits all. And I think that you're going to see more of that kind of personalization as everyone is navigating coming back to the office, right? Where some companies are just like, you're coming back to the office and forget about it, and hoping people resign. And I think you're going to see some pushback with that. They're going to have to try to keep up with to make their brand successful, it requires people that believe in your brand that work for you and that they're fulfilling that. And I think that you're going to see much more of a push towards, I would call it customer service, right? We are getting more like when we travel, right? What makes a memorable experience? I would say to me, 90% of the time is a service I get from a place, right? If I'm in a beautiful place and I have horrible service or it's just a horrible experience, it kind of taints my view. And so I think with businesses, they need to distinguish themselves. And with doing that, they need to also refocus on what is their workforce, how can they work and navigate with hybrid work, gig economy, different types of things to make it work to look for the value of the person and not just fitting a mold. So I think you will see a lot of changes with that. There's a lot going on politically, obviously, which is really making everybody all fired up. I think you'll see a rebalance of that. I think that the private sector will make it because they're going to need to distinguish themselves.
Great stuff. Sonya Locke, I want to be the first to thank you for sharing both your time and your story with us today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Anthony. You were great. And I really look forward to listening to some of your other podcasts.
Thank you. Folks, that's a wrap on another episode of the Inspired Stories podcast. Thanks for learning with us today.